Welcome to the Velocity Modeling new feature update and overview for Decision Space 10ep 5. My name is Larry Fink. I'm the product manager for Decision Space Velocity Modeling. Now we have 6 great new velocity modeling updates for building models in EP5, mostly dealing with, say, transition zones and frontier areas where you have little or no 3D data. But I'll go ahead and go over these features in detail in some of the later slides. Now, we also have 4 major sort of data analysis updates. And again, I will go over these updates in detail in some later slides as well. And finally, we have a lot of usability and performance updates, which again, I'll go through in the later slide. And of course, like in any release, we have several defect fixes, which I have the top, say, 22 listed on these next 2 slides here. You want to pause, you can read through these, but they're very nice fixes. So let's go to the first of the major model building updates. Now, this picture here on the left shows a model built in 10ep4 where we didn't properly handle data, input data that was in negative time. You can see how these time depth curves were not interpolated in the negative time zone. So here's 0 time, and anything above that would be negative time. So in EP5, we now properly interpolate the well pick velocity and time depth curve velocity in negative time. Now you don't have to go through the workaround of moving your datum above all of your input data and shifting everything around. Now you can leave your datum at sea level or wherever. And so this is very beneficial in transition zones or mountainous areas where you'd want to leave the datum at, say, like sea level. Now, continuing with this same sort of model building feature update, we updated the time depth curve editor to properly handle negative time as well. So again, here you can see on the picture on the left where we just ignored all the velocity information from the time depth curve in negative time. Now in EP5, what we do is properly handle the data in negative time and allow you to even do editing and massaging the data in the negative time region. And again, this is very beneficial in, say, mountainous regions or transition zones where you have data above the project datum, which goes into the negative time. Now, the next new major model building update is better support for frontier regions that really only contain 2D data or only sparse 3D data. What we've added here is a new drop-down that allows you to bring in OpenWorks 2D velocity input, and you can select any number of 2D lines that you want to use in order to build a full 3D velocity model. And again, these could be RMS velocities or interval velocities, stacking velocities, whichever type of velocities that you have. Average velocities are okay. And once you've input these 2D velocities, they'll magically be into a 3D model and interpolated along any 3D structures that you have. Now, it's a big deal ergonomically in that you can save hundreds of workflow button clicks and stuff from the EP4 workflow where you had to do a lot of the stuff manually. Now it's just a few selections and boom, you can get this great exploration model in these remote areas. Now the next big model building update is in our 2D layer-based model building workflow. And in this workflow, we used to only allow just interval velocities for layer or linear velocity functions, where you have a starting velocity and the velocity increasing with the gradient within the layer. But now you can sort of cut and paste different velocity functions or models into any layer of your model. So you can construct 10 different models and cut and paste them into different layers of the model and build sort of a the Frankensteinish type model. And this is very beneficial when you know the shallow portion of the model, but you want to run a bunch of what-if scenarios on different layers within the model to compare and contrast them and do different types of risk analysis on the model. The fifth model building update feature is the addition of a refinement gridding algorithm to interpolate the velocities between the wells. Now in EP4, we had 1 over distance squared and natural neighbor and a kriging method. Now we added a refining gridding interpolator. And this interpolator is real good when you're trying to avoid the bullseyes that are often caused by the 1 over distance squared interpolator, and just allows you more control on how the velocities change between your control well data. Now, speaking of interpolating between the wells, we also added a better option for interpolating between your seismic input functions. Now in EP4, if your seismic functions were spaced far apart, you got like a stair-step interpolator, horizontal interpolator between each input seismic function. But now in EP5, we have the magic button, interpolate along used surfaces, and it'll interpolate the seismic velocities, the seismic background velocities along the structure. So in this case, you get a much better representation of how the velocities are changing, the seismic velocities are changing along structure. So again, this is a great feature, and this was a Depth Team Express replacement feature. It's now in EP5. Transitioning now to the data analysis updates, we have added a bunch of lassoing and highlighting interaction between all the QA tables and cross plots and histograms and 2D views and 3D views. So now from any of the views, you can highlight what's selected in the other views, or you can actually PD send them as a list to other views. And once you sort of broadcast those to other views, they get highlighted, say like here in the map view or any of the listening views, they'll get highlighted in their view, in this example, in like the well data manager or so. And if you PD broadcast, it shows up as a list in any of the views. Now, if you want to do more than just highlight and look at the stuff in the views, we had another big data analysis update where you can just mouse button 3-click on any of the columns of our data analysis tables, and you could either instantly map it or grid it, or you can also just save it as a point set. Now, when you save it as the point set, of course, you can name the point set whatever you want, but this is really valuable if you want to take that point set into, say, like grid and contour or the GEM property modeling tool, where you can do some fancy gridding and more fancy analysis. Because once you have a point set, there's lots and lots of tools you can do on that data. Allowing these quick MB3 interactions with the data, is a great ergonomic usability feature to reduce the mouse button clicks, and it avoids data saving and selection errors. And it allows you to really get to know your data, so you could understand the trends in the data, and really good for analyzing anomalous well data. Now, when you're looking to analyze anomalous data, especially well data, a nice thing to do is to look at the histogram of the data, and of course crossplot too and stuff. But we've now added this PD highlighting functionality to the histogram as well, and we've added a scrollable number of bins to the histogram as well. Let me go ahead and show you a live demo of that. So here, we have our data analysis table that we have the full features on: map, grid, save as point set, and stuff. But say you wanted to see the histogram of that, you can just click on the histogram icon there, Let me move this so we can see the data properly, and I can, just dynamically change my number of bins and such. I can highlight, say, some anomalies, and you see how they're immediately highlighted in the table themselves. If you wanted to, say, see them in the map view, you just click on the show. So here I can hide, and there I can show what I've selected in the map view. And if I want to broadcast the point set or something, I would just do this button here. And of course the interaction works both ways. If I start highlighting things in my spreadsheet view, I can see where those show up in the histogram, and again I can see where those highlight in the map view, and again section views and 3D views, any view that's listening. So very powerful. And it's also sort of an ergonomic usability feature that just allows you to quickly highlight and analyze your data. Let's look for trends, look for anomalies, and let's get our data clean and really understand what's going on geologically. The last data analysis update I want to talk about is the addition of the layer stripping algorithm to fill in for missing picks when you don't have a missing pick. When you don't have a pick. In this case, I'm missing the pick for the top of the zone for several of these wells. Well, if I push the use layer stripping button, we're going to compute what the top pick would be for you, so we can do a lot more analysis and get better velocity information. The way we do that is to either use an input depth surface, or we use an input velocity model to sort of travel down to where that time surface is, and then that will give us what the depth is. And so now we can sort of generate these bold number picks. And again, a lot of times a pick is missing, not because the geologist was lazy and just didn't pick it. It could be faulted out, it could be eroded off, it could be just bad seismic imaging that you can't see it, or a bad well log. They might not even have logged it, so you're really not sure. This option just allows to give you the best guess of where seismically, based on the velocity model or based on the depth structure, where that pick should be. So it's a very, very nice option to have. And again, it's not just because it was lazy not being picked. There are lots of reasons why you would not have a pick. So let's switch gears here to just some general updates. And the first general update is we now added the option to export the velocity model to an ASCII format. And you would do this when you want to share your velocity model with partners, or just with other applications that don't read our velocity models directly. So this is a nice option that we hadn't had before. And again, this is a TDQ, or Depth Team Express replacement feature. The next sort of big usability option is the ability to save your time depth curves as a single log curve name. And this makes it just much easier to display your time depth curves within decision space. Before, we automatically saved the log curves, whatever the time depth curve name was, but that made the display in decision space very difficult. Now you get to decide the name yourself, and it makes the display much easier. And it's just, again, a big ergonomic usability feature for the decision space viewers. Another thing that we added was this interpreter column for when you're selecting the well picks, because before, it would always just select the well pick based on the interpreter source priority. But if you're like me, you're not necessarily sure of what pick came from what interpreter, and if I picked them all or somebody else picked them all. So now we're just showing the users what interpreter the picks that you're using are coming from. So it's just a nice feature there. Okay. And speaking of picks and knowing which pick you're using, before in EP4, we would always just take the pick with the highest observation number. Now we physically let you choose which observations of the picks that you want to use. You can use the lowest numbers, highest numbers, any numbers. You can use them all if you want. You know, if your horizontal well is porpoising up and down through it, yeah, you might want to use all of those picks. And so again, we're just allowing more control for the user to decide which picks they're using. Another big usability feature we added to all of the sort of data analysis dialogues is the ability to save well lists of your selected items. So what you do is you'll just click on the save well list and you give whatever your name. And this is a great feature for creating well lists of, say, anomalous wells or lists of just good wells that you want to use for further analysis. So either way, it's going to allow you to get to know your data much better and more transparency in your analysis. And that's really just the big things that I wanted to show. There's certainly a lot more features and functionalities that you can look through through the release notes and such. But we're very excited about this release. If you have any questions on it, let me know. Tweet me, call me, email me, whatever social media you want. Let's talk and let's get you running and using some of these great new features. I thank you for your time. Cheers. Enjoy your velocity modeling.